What is going on, everybody, and welcome back into Dog Talk with your host, Holden. Glad to have you guys here today, and I just realized two things really quickly because I swapped over to this screen, and all of a sudden, here's the two things I see. Number one, you can totally watch right here in the background that I'm 100% watching the rerun of the South Carolina game this past weekend. So we're just going to turn that off because not only is that distracting to possibly you, it's going to 100% be distracting to me. And then that light back there. For whatever reason, this is like the second or third time that this thing has just decided, you know what? I'm just gonna go crazy. I'm gonna make all kind of different things happen right here. But hey, wanted to come to you guys tonight, obviously alive and start something new. I talked about this kind of in the preseason, or I guess technically it is preseason, but off season was that I wanted to try to get a live call-in show up and running, and that's what we've got up and running here today, a live call-in show. Going to do this hopefully every Thursday from 9 to 10 o'clock. That's Eastern time. And hopefully it'll work. We're going to see. Got the number and everything set up. So you guys, if you want to call, it's 844-75 or 657. I'm going to give you guys all the references to these numbers because they do mean something. 657-3294. That is 657 DAWG, DAWG. The 657, can you guess where it comes from? National championship against TCU 65-7. So that's why I did that. Thought that was kind of neat. Somehow able to make that number work. And again, to be able to put dog in there was probably one of my favorite parts of that, even though I'm maybe the only one that possibly cares whatsoever. But anyways, wanted to get this thing going with you guys. Again, call in if you guys are watching live, or if you see the tweet that's going around the world, or even the Instagram, same thing. Call into that number at any point in time. We'll talk about whatever you got to talk about. But these are some things we're going to be talking about today. We have Austin Peay coming to the house this Saturday at 3:30. Another 3:30 kick. Kind of weird, not having those CBS numbers anymore. Those sounds from CBS anymore. I do kind of miss them. I'm not going to lie. I do kind of miss that CBS Saturday sound being there for the SEC. But things change, life moves on. But we've got some news and notes that we're going to hit really quickly. We're going to talk about the injury updates for Georgia. Obviously, then we'll be previewing the game, some kind of predictions. We got a lot of other games to look at around the country, too. Again, we're going to be doing this thing about an hour, so I know we start off with like a 5-minute timer, so we lose 5 minutes there, but I don't think that's going to hurt anything. Again, call in if you guys want, and we'll talk about whatever you want to talk about anytime throughout the show. Let's kind of get things started here. What I wanted to start with is I'm still curious to see. I've seen so many people talk about this third SEC matchup. I've even heard, I was listening, I think today, some of the SEC network guys were talking about it, and even on XM radio, just listening to them talk about the different teams that they think these teams are going to play. At one point when I tuned in earlier today, I was like, wait a minute, have they already picked them and I completely missed it? Haven't seen anything come out about that. I don't know that we're really going to see anything with it until next week, or until like maybe later in the season, maybe next season, like off season. I really don't know. I can't remember 100% like when we see those schedules come out. I feel like it's at the end of the year, really start of next year, where technically the end of this football season is over. When you start to see kind of schedule stuff. I don't know if that's going to last like that long. I feel like this is one of those that's a hot button item that everybody wants to talk about, that I don't think it's going to be able to last that long. I think eventually Greg Sankey, somebody's going to come out and they're going to say, all right, here's the entire SEC lineup. Here is, who Florida's playing. Here's who Georgia's playing. Here's who Alabama's playing. Here's all going through all of them. I think eventually that's going to come out before we get like a full schedule for next season. Most of the teams we already know who we're playing, but those three like permanent teams. I still want to know what you guys think. If you're tuning in live, make sure you put it in the comments. I'd love to know what you guys think. Or if you're listening on podcast format, again, you can listen anywhere. We are on podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, all the places. If you guys are listening there, I greatly appreciate it. On Spotify, if you're listening, you can actually comment on this. I'm not sure if you can do it on Apple, but if you want, hit that comment below and put on there who it is that you think that third team should be. Right now, it pretty much seems like it's going to be Auburn and Florida. That looks like the likely of at least two of those three. And again, those are probably the two biggest rivalries that Georgia has right now. Dating way back is obviously the Florida and Auburn. And again, I think I remember Eric talking about, so Eric Taylor at the Bulldog Report. Some of his stuff that I was listening to was, some of these other teams, and he made a really good point on how long we've actually been playing some of these teams. The length of time we've been playing some of them and who it should be. And he made a great point on a podcast that he does. Go check it out, the Bulldog Report. You'll see it also, or hear it also, I should say. But South Carolina being one that we've played a lot, as far as the tenure of times we've played each other compared to some of the other teams in the SEC, but also that regional aspect of it. As far as South Carolina, the two schools aren't that far apart from one another, so having that rivalry kind of built back up to what it used to be, especially to me, like mid 2000s, as you kind of got a little bit further there, from the Spurrier days too. South Carolina, I think, would be a good one. Again, you get that closeness and proximity to one another. The two teams that are obviously fighting not only for SEC contention, but you're also fighting in that recruiting class. Right there around your house for both teams. And then again, just being that close will be kind of fun. Driving right down the road and playing South Carolina, same thing. They head down to Athens and play back and forth. That is a good point to make there. That's a potential. I did like the rivalry in the game. There was a long time there where we just didn't beat South Carolina, and I couldn't stand it. And then when we finally kind of turned things around, especially when Kirby came onto the scene, pre-Kirby, even in the days of Mark Richt there near the end, Georgia did start to beat South Carolina a little bit more. But then when Kirby came in, that kind of changed a lot. That didn't really happen other than the one time, which was the last time that Georgia lost at home in Sanford Stadium, was then. And I think that would be a pretty fun one to put in. But to me, other than just that one, I still think Tennessee is one I'd love to see every year. One, because when they're up, it's kind of nice, like the last few years, Tennessee's been up. They get ranked number one every so often. They come to our house and we're not ranked number one, or we go to their house and they're ranked number one. I kind of like diminishing that. I'm not gonna lie to you. Having that, we're playing one another and all of a sudden these guys are number one, they're the best team in the country, and then we get to kind of temper those expectations throughout the season. That's a lot of fun to me. I enjoy it a lot. And I greatly appreciate that rivalry that could be, if we want to put that as the third permanent. Again, it's kind of hard for me to look at some of the other ones, like again in Alabama, I don't think is one that you would put on there as a permanent, rivalry, because I don't think that's something that's really permanent. I think that's just one over the last couple of years between the SEC and obviously the national championship as well. That's been a big rivalry that is kind of bloomed and blossomed a little bit, really just because we played. And then I also see the other side of it that, hey, if it's going to be a rivalry, you have to win it every so often. And Georgia's not done that very well. Things could be a changing. Things could be a changing. That's going to be the next topic that we get to. But again, if you guys are watching, listening, what have you, comment below who you think that third team should be. Again, Auburn, Florida, more than likely, probably going to be that lock in the SEC permanents. I'm personally thinking Tennessee would be one. I've heard the arguments for South Carolina. I could really see that. I think that would be a good one as well. And we'll see. Again, I don't think Vanderbilt's one. To me, Kentucky's not one that's been a really good rival here the last couple of years, which it's odd to say because when we play one another, a lot of times that actually turns out to be a really good football game, or really, in my opinion, it turns out to be a really bad football game. A couple of years ago, it was a good football game. We scored a good bit. They scored a good bit. It was kind of competitive back and forth. They had some good runners that made a big difference there for Mark Stoops in Kentucky. And then there were also the times where, like last year, it was just an ugly football game, a game that never felt like it really should. Never felt like Georgia kind of came onto the scene and did what they should have done in a football game. And I don't know. That's just not one I really want to see that rivalry being. Again, Vanderbilt's not really a rivalry as much as it's just one we played every season. But again, it goes back to that SEC East and SEC West. When those two divisions were there, it was normal to see those teams and us play them every year. But it's not necessarily because they're rivalry. It's more because the division we were in and you had to play those teams. So I'm not sure. But again, give me your opinions on who it should be. I talked about Alabama a little bit there. And again, we're in the news and notes section of this show so far. So if you're tuning in or what have you, and you're like, all right, let's move on. Let's get to talking to Georgia. Don't worry. We're about to get to it. This is an hour-long show. But is the Alabama reign over? Some would say it's been over since 2021 when Georgia won the first national championship, or 22 when Georgia repeated that. People would say 2020 is the last national championship they've had. And yeah, they've kind of been in it. They've been a little bit relevant, but they haven't made anything happen really since, 2023, I guess, playing Michigan. But Is the reign over? And I say that obviously because of the football game that happened this past weekend against FSU, a team who, personally to me, it's not just they didn't do things great. They didn't execute. They didn't make the plays when they should have or capitalize when they should have. It was just that lack of discipline. Something that all of us have grown accustomed to because all of us as SEC fans or fans of other teams in the SEC outside of Alabama, this is what we've seen year in and year out for the last decade plus, almost 2 decades, has been a team who reigned over everybody, not only in the SEC but in the country. And now to see that team kind of falter, a team who in the past you would see winning huge, up big at the end of a game, and their coach going absolutely ballistic on the sideline because somebody missed an assignment, somebody wasn't playing the way they should, they weren't listening, weren't doing what they were supposed to do. They were very, very disciplined. That doesn't seem to be there anymore. And I get it. The next guy up behind who is Saban can't be the same guy. I get that. I 100% get that. Here's my deal. I said this last week. You could pay me $1 million, no problem at all. I would love to be a fired Alabama head coach. Obviously, that would never happen, but I'd take that all day, any day. I think that'd be a lot of fun, but it can't really be fun in his book right here. He left a Washington program who, at the time, Washington was really coming along. They were in the playoffs. They were a team who was fighting to be in a spot in the playoffs and actually fighting for a national championship. He comes here, looks like potentially being the coach that could hopefully kind of continue what was going on at Alabama. Obviously, it can't necessarily live up to what it had been before, and we're just going to say it because it is the truth, is one of the best coaches in college football ever, if not ever, especially this last generation, was that of Nick Saban, and he's not there anymore. And I know they're reeling over it, but you also you kind of got to temper the expectations that the coach that they have in there now is going to do that. But the question still remains, is the reign over? And I know it's one football game, but here's the deal. Back before, the year either before Saban retired or the year that he was like, when he got to the end of it, it was over before he started the next season. That was when I started to notice even more, something's different. Something's not the same. One, it's they don't necessarily run the ball more, but it's that discipline. When we played them, I can't remember when it was, doesn't really matter at this point, more penalties than I've ever seen that team get. And I say that also in this, many a time playing them, doesn't matter where you're playing them or the SEC championship, we always joke, hey, they're always going to get the call. They are the team, right? They're always going to get the call no matter what because they are what everybody has known. They're the top of the SEC, the top of the country, the top of the world, and they're always going to get the call. And that stopped happening. All of a sudden, the calls were going against them. And nobody, I'm not. Trust me when I say nobody's saying that they bought the refs, anything like that. Nobody paid anybody off. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that something's just different. The discipline is not the same as what it was. And again, I don't know that you can necessarily replicate the discipline that was there before because, again, when you're up 40-6 in the fourth quarter with a minute and a half left, most coaches are probably going to enjoy that. Nick Saban wasn't. If you weren't doing what you were told to do or doing what you were supposed to do, he got on you for that. And it made the team better because of it. Most guys probably didn't enjoy that necessarily, but it still made the team better because he did that. He created that discipline. He had a culture in place there that I don't believe exists anymore. I think a lot of guys are really looking at, hey, what are the dollar signs that I can get for going to the most prestigious team in the country? Because that's what it's been, again, for the last almost 2 decades. That's part of it. And then I think it's also now they get in there and they just think they can do whatever they want. And that's just a different culture than what we've been accustomed to seeing. And I'm sure in that locker room, in that staff room, it's probably a little bit different too for anybody who's left over, who sees, hey, this is not the same reign that it used to be. This is not the same coaching that it used to be. We don't have the same discipline that we used to have coming into this. So I'm very curious as to think what you guys think on that. Again, I told you guys off the top of the show, it is a call-in show. If you hadn't seen either the top of it, really should have put it at the bottom of the screen. Would have been a great idea there, Holden, for everybody to understand. But if you want to call into the show, it is 844-657-3294. That's 844-657-DAWG, D-A-W-G. Taking calls at any point in time. Talk about whatever it is that you guys want to talk about. So we're going to kind of move forward into some of the injury updates real quick, leading into this Austin Peay game that we're about to preview as well, because there's quite a few injuries. There's quite a few. This is one of the things I think we talk about year in and year out, especially when we play some of the smaller teams in a Marshall, in an Austin Peay, in a Charleston Southern, the teams that you're going to be playing throughout the season is, man, I really don't want these guys to get hurt. And it's a lot tougher, too, when it's the first game of the season, because the first game of the season always feels like that, hey, if we could just get started and if we could just get by these guys and we could get into SEC play. And I don't know why this is, to be honest with you, as I think about it more. Why is it that we feel when we play these smaller teams, man, we really just hope these guys don't get hurt. But when we play the SEC and they get hurt, it's like, man, it stinks, but it's the SEC. And I guess maybe that's why we think that if they get hurt in an SEC game, well, that counts more because they probably should. It's a lot harder football game. It's a lot tougher opponent. But then when you get hurt against a not so strong team as it was in Marshall last week, just what it was what it was. It just feels like, man, that's even worse because it's a game that shouldn't necessarily matter, but it does, because again, when you get guys hurt, it matters a lot. But some of the injuries coming in, some of the behind the scenes of it too, that I don't know have 100% like been put out there. Offensive lineman Juwan Gaston. Yeah, I think it's Juwan. I don't think it's Juwan. Anyway, I'll try to get that right. Battling the ankle injury. Did see where I think it might have been Dog Nation put it out that that he was actually seen around campus in a boot on one leg and a knee brace as well, and riding on a scooter. So to be honest with you, not very good. Not very good to see that. Obviously, we knew when it happened it didn't necessarily look good. The bad part about it is we saw the glimpse of what was probably about to happen this season with that guy and how good he looked at this stage, starting off the season. And now it's just the heartbreak of, man, now we don't get to see that this season. I'm not going to say it's the whole season, but that looks pretty tough. Anytime anything has happened like that with an ankle or something like that, it seems like we just lose those guys for a long time and we don't really get them back quickly. It's not something that they recover from quickly. And again, you need your ankles, you need your knees, especially on that O-line. So important. Unfortunate for them. Obviously, Kirby said we're doing everything we can to get these guys back. All of these guys that we're going to talk about here in just a second. But some of these guys, I think we can kind of see the writing on the wall, especially that. You got a boot on, you got a brace on, you're riding on a scooter. You're not playing this Saturday. The only good thing about it is, again, it's Austin Peay. And I'm going to say that with a slight pause, mainly because of what we're about to get into of what Austin Peay did last week. Because we do have something. We don't get to just look back at last week. This is the thing I love when we start football. After week one, guess what? We got material. We got stuff we can look at that is physical, that has already happened on the football field. And that's what we have from last week, that we get to kind of preview some of this with Austin Peay instead of just saying, we're going to beat them 176-2. You know, we've got something to look at here. Moving on with the injury list here. Another offensive lineman, Ernest Green, obviously went down 2 with lower body stiffness, as Kirby told us. Don't know if that's something that can just kind of get worked out, and he'll be back this week. Hopeful is always the word that Kirby uses. That's what he used in this one. Dalen Everett, that was an unspecified injury kind of coming into the game, and then obviously after the game and the post game. And then I think Tuesday, Kirby actually came on and he said he's dealing with an ankle injury, but that he was able to go more starting this week, and they plan on amping him up even more Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday as we get later into the week. So hopefully we see him back. Obviously things went really well having his backups in there in week one. So that's a good thing. At least, again, we're building depth. We're creating depth in positions where we're going to need it. And that's an important position to have somebody too. But it's also an important guy to get back on the field before we get ready for a Tennessee that we're about to travel to. Then the bye week before Alabama comes to us. Great opportunity to get in there and knock some rust off. I think that's a really big part of it. Again, we didn't see Brett Thorson last week in week one. Again, the knee injury, obviously, from last season, the end of last year, I think at the SEC championship game. Did see his backup. And I think the last I heard from Kirby on this, most of this is all going to be from the Tuesday presser, was that he still has not yet been released by Georgia's medical staff. So no player that hasn't been released, you're never going to see that player. That player's not going to hit the field until he's released, and then Kirby gets the okay from who used to be Ryan Corson. To be honest with you, I'm not 100% sure who it is anymore. I should probably learn that. But they're not going to see the field. The last one, and I didn't even think about this until I got to work on Tuesday, and Hunter, friend of the show, you guys have heard the voice before, he was saying, hey, whatever happened to that Roderick kid, Robinson? And I was like, oh, he transferred. But then I was thinking of the other guy, Branson Robinson. Yeah, he left. So it's kind of complicated when you get some names that are real close like that. But I was like, that's a good point. I don't remember. But then I recall, I think it was the end of last year as well, that he had broke something, ankle, something like that maybe. and was out, and then I see that he's back, and then now he's battling some hamstring issues. Unfortunately, he's having consistent injuries year in and year out. This, I hope, doesn't turn into like a Kenny McIntosh deal where Kenny looks so good when he gets on the field and he goes a little while, boom, and then unfortunately gets hurt. Hopefully that's not the case with the Broderick. Hopefully we can get him back here in due time. And again, Kirby has already said this on all of them. We're trying to get all these guys back and back up into shape and able to get on the field, with exception to anybody who hasn't been cleared by medical yet, in that of Brett Thorson. So that is that on the injury front. So we've hit some news, we've hit some notes, we've hit some injury stuff. Again, if you guys want to call into the show, 844-657-3294. That is 844-65-7 against TCU. DAWG dog. Call it in if you guys want. We'll talk about whatever it is that you want to talk about. So let's get into the Austin Peay preview. This is one that normally, again, I think I wouldn't have a lot to talk about coming into this, because naturally, when you're playing a non-major school in an Austin Peay, which Georgia has played before, it's been a number of years ago. Forgot to look up the stats to see what it was Georgia did a number of years ago. But again, it was a number of years ago. Doesn't necessarily matter for this year, because a number of years ago is not this year. Different football team. But we do get to know what they did last week, because for the first time since 1987, Austin Peay defeated an FBS team, and that in a Middle Tennessee State last week. Not only did they defeat Middle Tennessee State, Middle Tennessee University, MTSU? I don't remember what it is now. Anyways, Middle Tennessee. Not only did they defeat them, they whooped them. They beat the snot out of this football team. This was not a 17-14, got by, squeaked by, high-scoring affair, nothing like that. Austin Peay, from the start of this football game to the end of this football game, absolutely whipped Middle Tennessee. Here's the only thing. I don't know a lot about Middle Tennessee. I really don't know a lot about Austin Peay. But I do know Middle Tennessee, every so often, they'll beat somebody here and there. And this is different. This is an FBS versus FCS. It's a little different when this happens. 34-14 is how bad they beat them. I want to give you guys some comparisons. Middle Tennessee was a 16.5-point favorite coming into this football game. 16.5-point favorite. They lost it. Basically, I think they had them at like 55% chance that they would win that football game. Low number. I thought it would have been a little bit higher. Maybe it was. Maybe I had my numbers wrong. Still, not as high as you would have thought. Again, as a 16.5-point favorite coming into that. Austin Peay was up in this football game 21-0 halfway through the second quarter. 21-0 on the road at Middle Tennessee. Again, an FBS team that had not been beaten. They had not beaten an FBS team since 1987. That's a long time. Long time not to have beaten an FBS team. And then they're up on them 21-0. And you're thinking, okay, this can't last. This can't last. It's not going to last that long. The other team scores. Middle Tennessee does score. And then Austin Peay kicks a field goal. And they continue that lead. Let me just give you some comparisons as to just how bad this whooping was. And then I'm also going to make another thing. 343 yards. If I just gave you a blank sheet right here and I said, hey, I want you to tell me who was who. Middle Tennessee played Austin Peay this past weekend. One team had 343 total yards. The other team had 153. Just about 90% of the time, you would say, hey, Middle Tennessee, they handled their business. No. Austin Peay handled their business in this 343 yards to 153. Third downs, key. We talk about this every single week. It's one of the keys to the game this week yet again is third down and the efficiency offensively to get a first down and defensively to get off the field on third down. Austin Peay 7 for 17. Middle Tennessee 0 for 12. They couldn't get a single first down on third downs the entire time. That's a defense who was doing their job. 1 of 1. They went 1 for 1, 100%. On fourth downs, that was Austin Peay. 1 for 4 was that of Middle Tennessee. So when Middle Tennessee realized, hey, we got to start doing something, they still couldn't do anything. 4 downs still wasn't enough. At least 3 of those 4 times, 4 downs was not enough to get it done. 193 through the air, 150 on the ground for Austin Peay. 109 through the air, 44 on the ground for Middle Tennessee. Here's my question. Does this mean that Austin Peay's defense is real? Is this something we're going to have to worry about? Georgia can't run the ball on Austin Peay? Is that what we're looking at? Is that what we're worried about in this? I don't know. Austin Peay held the ball a lot longer, too. 38 minutes, 35 seconds to 21-25. Here's the thing. This is another comparison I wanted to make because if you told me, and I like using this, if you told me, put on a blind, tell me who's who. Middle Tennessee loses this game. Man, they fumbled the ball 7 times. Man, they threw 12 interceptions. What happened in this game for that to happen? There were 0 turnovers in this game. There wasn't a single turnover in this football game. Nobody fumbled it. Nobody intercepted it. Either team. Austin Peay just absolutely whipped them. They've got a quarterback who can scramble. He can get some yardage. Ran it 11 times, whether some of that was pressures or not sure, to be honest with you. But it doesn't matter when there's no turnovers in a football game. They held a FBS team to 44 yards rushing, just over 100 yards through the air, 153 total yards in this football game. Didn't let them get a first down on third down. I don't know what the average was. I don't know if it was 5 and in or if it's long distance, 8+ yardage on the third downs. It doesn't matter, though. You're playing an Austin Peay team who it should not matter. But it's going to matter this week because Georgia's playing them. Georgia in a team who last week against Marshall looked like the Georgia of old. I said it last week. It's Marshall. Let's not hype on it too much. But they handled their business. Defensively, offensively, they handled the business. Middle Tennessee did not. Austin Peay did. So Austin Peay's not coming into this football game thinking, it's just Georgia. We'll just come in here, get our paycheck, hit the road. That's not what they're thinking. They're thinking, hey, I'm coming in here to give you everything I got. I did it last week. I'll do it again this week. So I think that's something that we can kind of keep an eye on. Checking in, how do you call in? So to call in, the phone number is pretty simple. Should just be 844-657-3294. 844-657-DAWG, DAWG. That's how you call in. If it calls in, I should hear you ring in just a minute. But Austin Peay's coming in here to give you everything that they possibly have. Everything. So if they're going to give you everything that they have, what should you do, Georgia? Be prepared in every single way. The good thing is last week, Georgia looked good against a team in, again, Marshall, who defensively, we did a great job. We stopped the run. We stopped the pass. We ran the ball well. We threw the ball well. It was an overall really, really good football game for Georgia last week and a really good football game for Austin Peay last week. Again, who wins for the first time against an FBS team since 1987. That's a long time, you guys. That's older than I am. I may be aging myself a little bit, but that's older than I am. I'm not that old. Matter of fact, I'm like 9 years younger than that. You guys do the math. I'm not doing it that quickly for you. You can handle it. You can handle it. But anyways, some of the keys that are going to have to go into this game to win it. Here's one of the first ones I want to use, and it's not necessarily just because I don't necessarily want this to happen, and it feels kind of, I don't know, it feels kind of sad to use this as a point, but I just want to get out of here injury-free. That's like my top thing in this. I don't want to have an injury in this football game. I want Georgia to come in here, handle their business, and everybody just magically not even have a cramp. That's what I want to happen, but it's hard. Secondly, as usual, and this one is going to matter, I think, maybe not as much as it has in the past, but it's third down efficiency. Win the third down efficiency. Offensively, that means get the job done on third down. Defensively, that means get the job done on third downs as well. Getting off the field, getting on the field, getting the first downs when you got the ball. Very important. Probably the last one on this, I think, is going to be run the ball. You know, I know this has been a key that we've used a lot of times in the past, but run the football. I want to see Georgia run the football in this game. I want to see us be able to stop, you know, what happened last week, only 44 yards, for Middle Tennessee. I don't want that to happen for Georgia in this one. I want Georgia to rack it up and run it up in this one. So that's kind of my keys to the game. Get out of here injury-free. Do what you got to do. Get out of here injury-free. We're going to have a lot of guys rotating in this game, is my hope. Obviously, if you have a game like a Middle Tennessee did last week, you're probably not going to get as many guys in. So you definitely got to have some guys get in. And I think that'll kind of help with the injury side of things. And then what do we talk about? Third down efficiency. I want to win that. Run the ball. Let's get some yards. Let's get some touches with these guys. All of them. I want to see them all. Phillips, Walker. I'd love to see Roderick. I don't think we're going to see him. Obviously, we want to see Nate the Great. All of these guys. Hey, Gunner, keep running it. I like seeing that too. Also, like in the presser from Tuesday, that Kirby said none of these are really calls for Gunner to run. It was just an opportunity that arose, and he took it. That's good to know. That's good to know that not necessarily. I'm not really worried about, hey, Bobo called up a run just for running back or quarterback. That part I don't really care about. But it's more of that side of Gunner saw that. He saw, hey, lane, I'm taking it, and he took it. So that was really good to see. That's kind of the keys on the game. I'm gonna give you guys a score prediction here in just a second. What I'm gonna do really quickly, and this is kind of let's see, what would the word I use here? This is where the unprofessionalism comes in. Because what I'm going to do while I'm talking to you guys live, and the only hope I have is that somehow I don't stop this recording by doing this, but I'm going to attempt to put the phone number in here on the live, because I realize that would have been a very important thing to do, is have the phone number put in there, Holden, so that way people could actually see what it is that you're talking about. So if you guys give me just a second, I'll tell you what, I'll even play us some music while I try to figure this out. So at least you're not having to just sit here in silence. I wonder if this is going to show up on the live too as I type it. By the way, if you're listening podcast form, I'm sorry for this boring part. It's totally showing up on the live like that, isn't it? 65-7. Oh, hello, dyslexia. 65-7 versus TCU. Dog. Now I don't remember what dog is. 3294. It looks alright, doesn't it? I'll tell you. Hey, there we go. All right, I have the call-in number on the page now. So if you're listening on podcast, I really do apologize for that, because that was incredibly boring to have to listen to basically nothing. But the number's up there now. So now when you go and you wonder, hey, how in the world do I actually call you? That's how you do it, guys. There's the phone number. And it doesn't say dog on there, so that makes it really boring. I'll make this look a lot better next week. That'd be a great idea. All right. So we're kind of getting to the end of the show here with obviously our preview of Austin Peay. We've gone through a good bit of stuff. Score prediction on this one. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm looking at all these stats from last week. I see them. I see what an Austin Peay team did to an FBS team. I don't know what Middle Tennessee is. That's just the honest truth about it. I don't know if they're a team that they didn't really expect this to happen. They got a lot of turnover. Austin Peay's bringing a lot back. I don't 100% know what the deal was with that last week, but 34-13 is serious. And the fact that they were up again 21-0 halfway through the second quarter, pretty doggone serious. So I'm curious. I'm really curious to see what this game's going to bring. There's no numbers on this game. Generally, you kind of get like, okay, Georgia's a 42.5 point favorite in this game. Last week was 39.5 when we got to see it. Maybe that's because it was FBS, not FCS. In Marshall, maybe. But nonetheless, I think Georgia comes ready to play some football this weekend. I think we got some guys that are beat up, but I think we got some guys that are still hungry. Some guys behind them that don't care. They're here to play football. It doesn't matter who you are, who you line up against, who you standing in front of. They don't care. That's why I think Georgia scored 45 last week, only gave up 7 to Marshall. What is double that? That's 90. I mean, that's possible. That's very possible. 86-3. Seems like a lot. I'm going to be honest with you. I do think Austin Peay scores more than Marshall did. I don't think it's going to be a lot more. I'm leaning like a 10, 13, maybe 10. 10 feels like the number. We're going to give Austin Peay 10. I feel like after the game they had last week, they're going to be juiced up about that. Rightfully so. Hey, you got a team last week. They played really good football. So did Georgia. Again, I'm going to give them 10. I'm going to give them just a little bit more than Marshall. I'm going to say that they can do that. Whether it's late in the football game doesn't matter to me. Maybe they get a fluke score early. Or maybe they drive right down the field early and they stun Georgia right out of the gate. And they put up 7 and Georgia doesn't let them do anything but kick a field goal later in the game. That's it. But I'm going to give them 10. Here's where I rattle back and forth. Is this an offensive explosion for Georgia? Or is this a, hey, we're going to ease into this thing? Because last week was, to me, an offensive explosion. This was the thing I loved about last week. I can't remember if we talked about it last week or not. The previous year, I know we talked a little bit about it because I said, hey, it's just Marshall. It's just Marshall. Who cares? There are games we played last year against teams that we should have dominated in every fashion, and we didn't. There are games last year that we were so slow, even in big games. And last week was refreshing. It was really refreshing to get out there, score quickly, stop a team from scoring quickly, get the ball back quickly, go score again quickly, and all of a sudden there's 14 points on the board before you've really even got your cheese dip out. Okay? So that was fun to see, and I feel like that could continue again this week. I think Georgia's going to score just slightly more than it was last week. I'm going to put this one 48-10. Dogs on top is the prediction. I feel like that's a good number. We scored 45 last week. I think we can easily get back there, kick a field goal on top of that to make it a little bit better. 48-10 still feels like a good win, a good total on it. I don't know what the number is. Again, I can't see any numbers anywhere. I also have not dove deep into it because I don't think it matters quite as much. But I still think Georgia gets on top of this one 48-10. I know that they had a great game last week. I think they're going to be coming in juiced. But I think Georgia has a team this year that's probably going to stun some people. Because, again, off season, all the talk, all the chatter, we got into the season, and it just felt like this was a different Georgia team that fielded the field this past Saturday than did the start of last season, that did all of last season. Again, I know it's a different team. We have a lot of turnover. We only have, 54% returning from last year. But this year, something feels different, even in that first game that we had. This is going to be a telltale sign to me is this kind of an opponent when they come in. Do we let them loose? You know, do they score? Do they have a chance? Or does Georgia just step on their throat immediately and say, nope, this is the Georgia of 2, 3, 4 years ago. This is a team you're not about to run on. This is a team that, good luck. That's all I can tell you. The wrecking ball that's Georgia. I think that's what we're going to get this season. I'm excited about it. We're really going to be able to tell this week by how they handle an opponent that they should be looking over, by whether or not they do actually look over that. But then next week is really where things are going to turn up when we head to Tennessee. But that's what I got at 48-10 on the prediction against Austin Peay. Looking forward to the game regardless of who it is. Any week, any day, any time we get Georgia on the field, I'm excited about it every single week. Let's look at some of the other games that are going on around the country because, believe it or not, Georgia's not the only team playing this weekend. Not any real big games. This is kind of the bad part. You had such a great week 1 slate. I mean, you had games everywhere. Again, it stretched from Thursday to Sunday. We talked about it. By the way, it's going to be a long, long ride for Mr. Bill Belichick at North Carolina. That was ugly. Like, bad. I feel like I could have coached a little bit better than that. That was bad. 48-14, wasn't that the final? I wish I had it in front of me. That would have been important. Wow. That's awful. That was a really bad football game. Really, really bad football game. Let me just give you an example. Again, Georgia's playing Austin Peay. Florida International versus Penn State. What is this? They're 42.5-point favorites. San Jose State versus Texas. They're 36.5-point favorites. Here's one that's surprisingly close. Number 11, Illinois headed to Duke. Unranked Duke. It is in Wilmington. Or excuse me, it's in Durham, Wilmington. Illinois is only a 2.5-point favorite. They give Duke, generally a home team, gets a 3-point swing because you're at home. Swing. Illinois is only a 2.5 point favorite on the road. They're ranked 11. Again, this is kind of another one of those. I probably should have done that in the news and notes. Is like, hey, let's go through the AP top 25 because Georgia's ranked 4 now. I think they put LSU ahead of us at 3rd. It's kind of wild. We're going to look at that after this. I'm going to write this down so maybe I don't forget. Poll holding. Maybe I'll remember that. Doubt it, but Georgia's at 4. But Illinois at 11, and they're going to Duke, and they're only a 2.5 point favorite. Maybe that comes. This is the craziest thing too. Vegas, it's a little uncanny how close they get to some of these games. It really is. I don't really understand how in the world they get that close sometimes. Sometimes they do, but 2.5 point favorite. I know it's just a spread, and obviously teams like FSU, they did not care what that said last week. And Austin Peay, they didn't care what that number was last week because they took care of business in every single way. But it's really jarring to see a top 15 team like that low of a favorite on the road at a Duke team who maybe not. Some of the other ones, East Texas A&M versus Florida State. Again, week 2 is just not fun in comparison to week 1. Iowa State, that'll be a fun one. Iowa State's a 3.5 point favorite at home. 2-0 versus 1-0. Obviously, they played in week 0. That one will probably be a fun game. Probably one of the only fun games there. I think there's like 4 games worth probably watching. This will be one of them. Baylor and SMU, I think, will be a good one to watch as well. SMU 2.5 point favorites at home, so that means Baylor's kind of right there on the edge of being maybe upset. That Baylor Auburn game last week, I think personally was a pretty good football game. It was a good one to watch. I enjoy watching Auburn from time to time. Grew up in the state of Alabama, so my dad's an Auburn fan. So I kind of grew up watching a little bit of Auburn too. So I don't mind watching them as long as they're not playing us. If they're playing us, I'm not pulling for you. But Baylor SMU might be one worth watching. That one's at 12 o'clock on the CW. Again, some of these networks, it kind of cracks me up. Kennesaw State, by the way, Georgia's playing SEC Network Plus. Again, we talked about this last year. You generally have at least one game that you're playing on the Plus, which you have to have either ESPN Plus subscription or I don't really know how else you get it outside of having that SEC Network Plus, but I don't know where that comes from. Maybe it comes from, I don't think you get it on television regardless. So you're going to have to stream that one. Baylor SMU, be a good one. Kennesaw State, Indiana. Again, not a very fun game. Let's see if we can get to some other kind of fun ones. Oklahoma State, Oregon, maybe. Oregon's huge favorite in this one. They're ranked 6th in the country. I don't know how long Gundy can possibly keep his job. He's been there forever, but they keep him. Anyways, Troy, Clemson, the only reason I say that one, because I am a Troy fan. I do enjoy Troy. Almost went to school there. Know some people that go to school there, so that'll be a fun one to kind of watch. It's at Clemson. Clemson's a big favorite in that one, but hey, Troy has shocked the world before. They've done it to LSU. They almost did it to Florida. Trying to think of some other teams that they've beat before. Did they beat Florida one year? Anyway, I don't remember. But Troy can every so often, they can kind of shock a team. They beat an LSU, who an LSU beat Clemson. I'm just saying. Then you do have Ole Miss at Kentucky. This one shouldn't matter. I think Kentucky's the worst team in the SEC this year. Kind of fighting with Arkansas a little bit on that. I hate to say it because it's Arkansas, but not necessarily a very good team in Kentucky. Ole Miss, an 8.5 point favorite on the road. This game did not go the way Ole Miss thought it would last year, though. What in the world? So I don't really know what to think about that one. I do think it'll be worth watching. That was 3:30 on ABC. This is one I will be watching. Florida's a 17.5 point favorite in this one, but it's South Florida, a team I told you guys about last week because of the years previous where Alabama went to, and they came from South Florida to play. And that was a really good football game unto which one they probably should not have won when they played at South Florida. Again, we're talking about a culture change here at the start of this show, and maybe they're just not the team of old. Things are changing. Maybe they won't be. That reign could be over, but nonetheless, South Florida still gave them everything they possibly could. And last week they did the same thing to a top 25 in Boise State at 25, and they beat them to a pulp. South Florida is not a team that you just walk by, that you just don't think about. They get it at the Swamp. It's at 4:15. It's on the SEC Network if you guys want to watch it. It is our rival. It's going to be one of our permanents, but it's South Florida. And this South Florida team, I don't know what it is, but they tend to beat teams. Not going to say that's happening here. Florida's ranked 13th. Just watch out. That's all I'll say. Just watch out. Some other ones, because you really want to know that Cal Poly's playing Utah and Bethune-Cookman's playing Miami. South Carolina State's playing South Carolina, which, by the way, their logos look really similar on this right here. Doesn't matter. Louisiana Tech at LSU. What's up with these in-state games happening, but they're not rivalries? Arizona State, Mississippi State could be an interesting one. Arizona State, will they actually be the team that everybody thinks they're going to be? Could Mississippi State shock the world? Could they beat a top 15 team? Something that I don't think's happened in a really long time. They do get them at home. It's a night game, 7:30 ESPN2. They've got all the makings right there to make it a really good football game. Will it happen? I don't know. I really don't know. The game of the week probably to watch is going to be that 7:30 on ABC. You get number 15 Michigan at number 18 Oklahoma. Two teams that I believe might be overrated in those rankings. Is what it is. We're going to see. But could also just turn out to be a really good football game of mid. I don't know. We're going to see Michigan, Oklahoma. And then the last one, probably the most important, probably the most anticipated game of the week this week on the SEC Network at 7:45. UL Monroe travels to Alabama. Number 21 ranked, by the way. We're going to talk about that in just a second. Number 21 ranked Alabama. UL Monroe for what, the first time since 2007? Was that the start of the Saban era that is now over? The reign that's coming to an end? Could it happen again? Following an FSU loss this past week? I don't know. But it could. Could it happen? I don't think it's going to. I think that team's going to come ready to play. But it could. It could happen. We're going to see. Let's look at the AP poll, the AP top 25 real quick. Then we're going to wrap up. We're about, I'd say, 8 minutes away from wrapping up the show here. No calls this week. Hey, it's okay. I just put it out like an hour before we started. I was going to post it last night, but I kept thinking, I've got this thing set up to where you literally are not supposed to be able to get through and call, and you can leave a voicemail, which is cool too, but you're not supposed to be able to get through in after hours. But I was not very pleased with the thought of potentially putting that out there and then people just randomly calling it just to randomly call it, and then I have to deal with that. So I didn't. I waited until right before I could post it that the live was coming up and that we're going to do the live and call-in show. Hopefully in the future, if you guys are listening on podcast, you guys will know Thursday nights, 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock, we're going live. We're doing the live. We'll do the live call-in show. You guys can call and talk about whatever you want. Keep it family-friendly, guys. Come on. Come on. I want the kids to be able to watch if they want to also. But we're going to keep it family-friendly, but we're also going to talk about anything that you guys want to talk about. If you get real deep in the history of stuff with me, you're going to lose me. I don't have the greatest knowledge as far as history of Georgia goes. Some people can attest to that. If you've listened long enough, you might already know that. But hey, AP Top 25. Don't know why I just changed my language, but I did. Here we go. Ohio State is at the top. Kind of what we figured. Kind of last week thinking that we're probably supposed to be the number one team anyway. I will say this, though. I don't know that either of these teams between Ohio State and Texas, I think they both have incredible defenses. I think they're going to have probably a couple of the best defenses in the country this year altogether. But with that being said, I don't know that either of these teams is going to have an offense. So what it's going to take that like Iowa bruising where they're going to run all over you and they might throw a few times, but you're not going to score on them. You know, they might win a couple of games 17-0. You know, I'm sure there'll be a couple of games where they blow some teams out. That's going to happen, I'm sure. But the defenses look real. The offense is where I'm going to have the question marks this year for them. But Ohio State 1, Penn State 2. I have no clue why they're there other than the schedule lines up really well for them and the guys that they bring back. If Penn State doesn't do this year, though, they're not going to do it. And I don't know if that's enough to say, hey, James Franklin, kick rocks. Hope not. But we'll see. Don't think that ranking will stick around. LSU at 3. Give them their flowers. Sure, they beat LSU on the road. LSU was the number 4 team. Clemson was the number 4 team in the country. You give them that 3 nod because they beat the top 5 team in the country. In just my personal opinion, that of a Clemson team who I don't believe is top 25. Okay, I believe they're top 25. I take that back. I don't think they're top 10. I don't think maybe they're not even top 15. Maybe they'll be top 10 afterwards. I think it was a good defensive showing from both teams. Offensively, LSU did have a little bit more firepower. I do think offensively LSU will be better this year. The question again is going to just remain of can they Can they stop teams from scoring? I don't believe they're the third ranked team in the country. Just my personal opinion. They will be able to change my mind as the season rolls on. Nonetheless, they're ranked third. Georgia at 4. Miami at 5. Big win again against Notre Dame, a Notre Dame team who I thought was going to be a little bit better this year. It was a good game. Notre Dame fought back to make it close, but nonetheless, Miami still won it. I'm not even going to acknowledge the conversation of the post game stuff with Carson Beck. I'm just not even going to acknowledge it. Hats off to him. Great game there. Oregon 6, Texas 7, Clemson 8, Notre Dame 9. I do think Notre Dame's going to bounce back. I still think they're going to have a really good team. South Carolina 10. I think South Carolina's also going to be a good team this year. Some people are a little bit lower on them. We're going to see. Again, they've got to get into that SEC play before we see it. Illinois at 11. That's not going to stick. Arizona State 12, Florida 13, FSU all the way up to 14. Rightfully so. Again, they look really good in this one offensively and defensively. Let's see, Michigan 15, Iowa State 16, SMU 17. They used the blue horse instead of the red. That's really weird. Oklahoma 18, Texas A&M 19, Ole Miss 20, Alabama 21 for the first time, I think, since that 07 season when they lost, if it wasn't 08, to ULM, which they're about to play this weekend. Take that for what you will. Anyway, Tennessee 22, Indiana 23, Texas Tech 24, Utah 25. A couple other teams getting votes: BYU, Auburn, Georgia Tech, USC, Louisville, TCU, and Missouri. TCU probably only there because they scored 78,000 points, kind of like we did against them in the national championship. Hence the phone number 657-657-3294-657 DAWG DAWG. Hey, South Florida's getting some love there too. Please don't put USC in the top 25. I don't want to have to just talk about them again, just to talk about them. Just to say that you wanted to talk about them. That's the AP Top 25. That's the games around the week, or games around the country going on this week. I'll put out my picks when the time comes later on. Generally those come out like Saturday. I'll put out the keys to the game, which we talked about earlier. I will put out the picks that I'm going to go through, which was an absolutely terrible week of picks. I wish I'd have had them at least where I could click it and pull it up on the screen for you guys so that way you could see it, because I picked Georgia. I did pick Georgia. Nope, I picked Marshall to cover that line of 39.5. Boom, I was 2-0 starting the day. It felt so good. Then Alabama lost, which I picked. Awful. Then Clemson lost, which I picked. Awful. Was it Texas? I may have picked Texas. They lost. Awful. I don't remember who my third team was. Regardless, literally went 2-3 in week 1. Not good. Thought it was going to be a simple week, so you may see some absolute, like, Georgia over Austin Peay, Tennessee over Tennessee Tech, Alabama over ULM, Florida. I don't know. We'll see. But just kind of keep your eye out if you want to do that. Where do you keep your eye out? I don't know. I don't even know how to call the show. You just now put the number down there for us to actually see who to call if we didn't see the thumbnail ahead of time. Go on socials, Instagram, Facebook. I'm going to call it Twitter, even though it's X, because it's just Twitter. That is what it is. Go on all of those socials. You can go to any of them. You'll see I post as much as I can as far as what's going on and what we'll be doing. I posted, again, it was only an hour before we started, so I get it. Hey, I wouldn't call anybody either if you just got a notice an hour ahead of time. But nonetheless, go on all those socials. If you're listening in podcast format, which you can listen anywhere, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Spotify, all the places, Google Podcasts, all these different places you can listen. Wherever you listen to a podcast, you can do it. You can do it wherever you listen. It's cool with me. But in the link of the description, there is a link at the bottom of it. It's a link tree. Click it. It will show you everything. It'll show you all the socials. It'll show you Spotify. It'll show you iHeartRadio. I'm fairly certain it'll show you Apple Podcasts. You can go to all those links. Follow along. Do that. Same thing on the YouTube channel. If you're not subscribed, click this subscribe button below. Like the video too. If you like it, I'd greatly appreciate it. Again, I will do better about this. This will not look like this next week. I will fix this because that was my fault. I didn't even think about this until we started, and I started going, hey, I probably should have put that on there so that way somebody could actually know what was going on. Completely forgot about it. I apologize for that. But nonetheless, it is what it is. And I'm going to get out of here. It's time for me to get out of here. Because it's been an hour, and I wanted to do this thing for an hour. Hey, I appreciate you guys listening. Again, I think Georgia's going to be on top of this one. I'm excited for that. I hope you guys are excited for it as well. Looking forward to some more football this weekend. There's a couple of good games going on. Not a ton. That's okay. It is what it is. I'll check in with you guys later on. Go Dogs.